This is Gemara Megillah Daf Dalit. All the learning for this month, the month of Teves, has been generously sponsored the Schos, the Ili Neshama for our Leib and Yaakov Zatzal, a Yid who lived in Radin, was Leicha to see the Chavas Chaim. Mirz Hashem, the learning of the entire Chabura as we grow, Baruch Hashem, should be an incredible Schos, Ili Neshama, Var Leib and Yaakov Zatzal should be continuing going higher and higher in his place in Gan Eden Shel Maila. As well as all the learning should be a Schos Shidduch V'Sochaim, the Varish Shemir Masritz Gidol Shanayel B'Shan Makol Mordechai B'Zav Shindel So Gitov B'Zav Shindel Shlomo Ben Levi Zahava. As well as the Schos Ruach Shleima Shmuel Yosef and Yafrei Demen Ben Megillah Chaim Etzar Shom Zim Rezel Zerbas Gnendel Ita Basim Bas Chai Yisrael Yisrael Memendel Lezer Ben Yehudas Shavalei Shlomo Bas Nami B'Shavik Shechano Shmo Ben Tila Dinim Chan Rezel Mechai Bas Mina Dinena Ben Bashina Mendel Svivek Very Good Divar Nachal Naso Michaeli Sivor Nasdeli Yahuva Rivka Bas Hashem Natal Zim Mechalaster as well B'Soy Shar Chali Yisrael. We're holding on the bottom of Gimel Amid B's. We're 3 lines into the white lines, and we're middle of statements of Rav Yeshua ben Levi. We had 2 statements yesterday. Now says the Gemara, the beginning of the line, Va'amar Rav Yeshua ben Levi. Krach she'in b'yasara batlanim nidan kikfar. What is a krach? We finally get to learn what is a krach, what is a city. Says the Gemara, if there are not 10 people at all times who are not doing any business, rather they're sitting in shul and they're learning, if not, it's a kfar. It's a village. You have at least 10 people committed to sitting in the Beis Medrash in the shul all day in order for the city to go from a kfar, from a small village, to a krach, to a city. Asks the Gemara, my kamashmon, what's the chiddush? Tanina, we already learned that. Rav Yeshua ben Levi, what are you teaching us? It's a brayso. Says the brayso, Ezei yer gedayla. What's a big city? Kol shish basar balanin. Anything that has 10 men who are batal, that are idle, are not working and sitting and learning. Pachas mikana reiz kfar. Less than that, that is a kfar. Krach. So answers the Gemara, krach et strichlei. Rav Yeshua ben Levi teaches a chiddush in a krach. Because if we have a krach, a village, and as Rashi points out over here, a krach is a place that has stores. A krach is a place that there are people there all the time. So you would have thought, explains the Gemara 4 lines from the bottom, Afal gav the miklile me'alma. There are always people in the krach. There's always random people doing nothing. I shouldn't say do nothing, chas v'shalom. There's always travelers that are idle and are sitting in shul and learning. So maybe you would think from the mere fact that there's always a random conglomeration of 10 men sitting in shul, maybe that itself is enough to bump it up and call it a larger city. Says Rav Yeshua ben Levi, no. It has to be people who are sole purpose of what they do is to sit and learn. The fact that there are passers-by and there's merchants that have a slow day, they go to shul and learn, that does not bump up the city to give it a status of an ear. Says the Gemara of Amar Rav Yeshua ben Levi, another statement. Krach shecharav u'b'sav yashav nidan kikrach. If we have a city that was literally destroyed and then rebuilt, it still has the status of a krach, still has the status of a city. Says the Gemara, my charav, what does it mean it was destroyed? That the walls were destroyed. Says the Gemara, I don't understand. Yashav in lo yashav loy. It sounds like, what did the statement of Yeshua ben Levi say? There was a city, it had walls, it was charav, the walls were destroyed. If it was rebuilt, what would rebuilt mean? The walls are rebuilt. Then says Yeshua ben Levi, it has the status of a walled city. It sounds like if it wasn't rebuilt, it would not have the status of a walled city. But I asked the Gemara, I don't understand. V'atanya, we learned in a brayso, Asher loy chayma, says in the pasuk Asher loy chayma, that it has to it a wall. Even though right now it does not have a wall. As long as it originally had a wall, that's enough to be called a walled city. So what would the statement of Yeshua ben Levi mean? That only because the wall was rebuilt? It's not true. We see clearly if it originally had a wall, that's enough to be called a walled city. Ela my charavs, explains the Gemara, what did it mean charav destroyed? It means that they reduced their status to weren't 10 people sitting and learning. And then if they come back, then it retains its status. And Taisus here points out, so we see that it has nothing to do with the walled city. It's really dealing with an unwalled city, and it's this isolated din about Asara Batlanim. V'amar Rav Yeshua ben Levi, a 5th statement as we turn over to today's Daf Dalet Amud Aleph, says Rav Yeshua ben Levi, Lud, that's the name of a place. V'ainai, that's the name of a place. V'gei Acharashim, that's another name of a place. Mukavas Chaimam, Imois Yeshua ben Nun. These 3 places, Lud, Ainai, and Gei Charashim, are places places that had walls all the way back from the time of Yeshua ben Nun Havi. V'hani Yeshua baninu, says the Gemara, 1 second. History lesson. Yeshua built those walls? V'alpayel baninu. That's not true, but there was a yin named Alpayel. He's the one that built it. The Chsev, as the Pasuk says, B'nei Alpayel over, as the children of Alpayel passed by, were Aver, Umishaim, Vishamad, or Shamar, Hu Bana es Ainai. He built that city, Ve'es Lloyd, Ubinaisel, and the place called Lloyd, and Benaisel, all the areas around it. So we see that Alpayel and his children built it, not Yeshua ben Nun. Answers the Gemara, 1 second. According to what you just said, that it wasn't Yeshua, rather it was a person named Bananyu, Asa Baninu. So then it wasn't. It says the Gemara really was Asa. Asa, who lived later, he was one that built it. Why? We have a different pasuk. But even Asa Yehuda. So says the Gemara, we have a problem. We started off saying Lod Aina and Gicharashim are built from Yeshua ben Nun. Ask the Gemara, we have a pasuk says the children of Alpayel built it. Says the Gemara, 1 second. We have a different pasuk that says Bananu built it. So what's going on? Explains the Gemara, Amar Rav Elazar, as everyone anticipates. Hanu mukavas chaimim Yeshua ben Nun. Really, there were walls all the way back from Yeshua ben Nun. Havu. What happened? The Charva we made Pelagish Begiva. In the time of Pelagish Begiva, the walls were destroyed. Vas Alpayel banenu. Alpayel came and he rebuilt it. Hadar Inpil. The walls again fell down. The walls again got cracks. Asa shapitzinu. Asa came and he restored the wall. They cannot me, and this is precise. I have a diak in the pasuk. Build these cities. What does it mean, these cities? It sounds like they already were cities. They originally were cities. That these indeed were original cities in the time of Yeshua ben Nun. They were destroyed and they were rebuilt by Beninu and then Alpayel and then Beninu. Says the Gemara of Amr of Yeshua ben Levi. Another statement of Yeshua ben Levi, about 10 lines down. First word of line is Meikara. Noshim chayavais b'mikra Megillah. Women are obligated to hear the Megillah. A din I'm sure everyone knows. Now we've learned the source inside Gemara Megillah, Dalet Amud Aleph, 10 lines down. Yeshua ben Levi teaches women are obligated to hear the Megillah. Why? Shavhein hayu b'is. They also were part of the nace. They also were part of the miracle. What were their part? Says Rashi. Sha'afal anoshim gavzar Haman lahashmid laharay gulabin minar v'atzakin taf v'noshim. Haman wanted to kill everyone, and therefore the nace, the miracle, was for the woman as well. So they as well are obligated in reading the Megillah. V'amar Rav Yeshua ben Levi, another statement. Purim shachal liyos b'Shabbos. Purim falls out on Shabbos. Shaylim v'darshem minyan shel yom. What do? We shayel, we ask, and we darshan the halachos of Purim on Shabbos. This happened last year here in Eretz Yisrael. The 15th fell on a Purim, and this was a major topic. Everyone said that there's a special din for the Rav to get up and darshan and give over the halachos of Purim on that Shabbos. We see it straight in the Gemara. Ask the Gemara, my Arya Purim, why are you talking about Purim? Afilu Yantiv Nami. We know this is a din in every Yantiv. The Tanya we learned in a Brisa, Moshe Tikim Land Yisrael, Moshe Rabbeinu, established for Klal Yisrael, Sheishaylim Adarshem Minyan Shal Yom, Helchos Pesach B'Pesach, Chasaras Atzeres, Helchos Chag B'Chag. So says the Gemara, there's nothing to do with a special din of Purim on Shabbos. It's the din of all Yom and Tovim, Pesach, Shavuos, Sukkos. We have to darshan all the halachas in public. Answers the Gemara, Purim is a special chiddush. Ma'u detema. I would have thought, Nigzer Mishum de Rabba, I would have thought, just like we don't read the Megillah on Shabbos, a Gezerah that we'll see either at the end of today or the beginning of tomorrow, just like we don't lay in the Megillah on Shabbos, the famous Gezerah of Rabbah, they're afraid one might come to carry the Megillah, so maybe they made another Gezerah disallowing and saying, don't darshan either in public. Kamash B'lan, no, that they didn't stop, and you, yes, indeed, darshan on Purim. So it's true it applies to Pesach, Shavuos, and Sukkot, but there's an added element of novelty of chiddush on Purim, because just like on Purim we don't read the Megillah. Maybe you don't darshan. No, you darshan on Purim. Continues the Gemara of Amr of Yeshua ben Levi. Explains Rabbi Shua ben Levi, Chayiv Adam Likros as a Megillah Balayla Shnaisa B'Yom. We have to read the Megillah at night and then repeat it in the morning. Shenemar, where do we see this in the pasuk? Elokai Ekra, to my God I call out Yomam at night. V'lo Isana, and Hashem you don't answer. V'Layla, so what do? I call it at night. V'lo Idami Ali, and there's no stopping for me. So what do we see? We see there's two cryings out. So we see we read the Megillah by night and then by day. Savar Minei LeMikra Balayla Ulemisnayim Asnitan Didei B'Yamama. So the Talmidim thought, 1 second, from this pasuk, it doesn't sound like you leaned the Megillah twice. You leaned the Megillah once at night, and in the morning it sounds like you should learn. You should learn the Mishnayos of Masechtas Megillah. Where do we see that we leaned the Megillah 2 times? Amar Lahu Rav Yirmiyah Ladei Mefarshim Minei Rav Chia bar Rav. Rav Yirmiyah says, I was explaining this halacha. Kon Amri Inchi, like people say, ever Parshas Adah. Let me finish this parsha. Vesnaya, and then I'll repeat it. So the word Esnaya over here doesn't mean to learn like the Mishnayos, it means to repeat, and therefore we see that you learn the Megillah at night, and then you repeat it by day, and it's Marnami, says the Gemara, lines to the bottom, Amar Rav Chelboy, Amar Ula Bira, Chayiv Adam Likros in the Megillah Balaylo, Shanaisa B'Yom, and repeat it by day, Shenemar, another pasuk that says, Lamani Zamercha Chavoid, so that my soul shall sing, and you should not be silent, Hashem, and forever we're going to thank you. And the Midrashim here explain this is referring to Purim, and therefore we see 2 different sources, 2 different Makairis, so we have to lane the Megillah twice, once at night, and then again by day. Says the Gemara, 4 lines from the bottom, so this was the second part of the Mishnah that we said in the Mishnah, that the Kfarim, the villages, read the Megillah early, that if Purim falls on any day aside from Monday and Thursday, they bump up their reading to the Yom HaKnisa, to the day of gathering, the day that they went anyways to the big cities for court cases, anyways they went to hear the laning on Monday and Thursday. So on that day, they also would hear the Megillah. Says the Gemara, Amar Rav Chanina, Chachamim Ikilu al Kfarim. Why? Why are the Kfarim? Why are we being makel on these small villages and allowing them to read the Megillah early on the day of gathering Monday and Thursday? You know why? And we explain this in the Mishnah. Lios Makdim Eliyam HaKnisa, they do it early on the day of gathering. Why? Kedei sheyisbeku mayim umazon la'acheim shebekrachim. So that there will be available on Purim Day to supply water and supplies to their brethren in the towns. So we allow the people in the villages to read early, so that on Purim they're not reading the Megillah, and rather they could give food to people in the towns. So says the Gemara, let's listen to what we just said as we turn over to Daladam and Beis. Lememra, what you just said sounds like Titzakana de Krachim Ave. It sounds like this whole creation is for the Krachim, not for the small villages themselves. Sounds like they made this takana not for them, but for the Krachim, the towns, so that the people are available to give the townspeople their food. So who is the takana for? Not for me to read early. I read early so I could supply you in the town with food. So who is the takana for? You in the town. Ask the Gemara 1 second, but now we learned in the Mishnah, Chaliyos b'Sheni. If it falls on Sheni, then Kfar v'Yaretz Kedas Karim b'Yayim. They read on that day. V'em Isa, but if what you just said is true, that it's a special takana, nothing to do with us ourselves, but rather it's for the towns, L'kadim L'Yom HaKnisa. Let them do it earlier on the preceding Thursday. Answers the Gemara, technical problem, Avlu Asara. The preceding Thursday is the 10th of Adar. Asara L'tikin Rabbanan. And we can't do it on the 10th, as we learned in Daf Beis, that we only add on 2 extra days. We have the 14th and the 15th. We add on 2 days, the 11th and the 12th. The 13th is Dikr Nes. So you can't read on the 10th, technical problem. Tashema, the Gemara tries again. Chalios b'chamishi, if it falls on Thursday, Kfarim b'Yaretz Kedas Karim b'Yayim. Ask the Gemara 1 second. V'im so what you just said, let them read on Monday, which is the 11th. Says Gemara, no. We never push from one day a gathering of a Thursday to a Monday. Tashema, attempt number 3. Rav Yehuda explained, when did this whole din apply? Only when the small villages used to go into the larger villages on Monday and Thursday. But when they don't go in on a Monday and Thursday, then you read in the right time. Says the Gemara, 1 second. But if it's like you just said, that it's not for us in the small villages, it's for you in the larger towns, that we should be available to supply you with food. Just because we don't generally go and read on Monday and Thursday, you in the larger town should lose. It makes no sense. If the whole takana is for you, so what's the difference if I generally go on Monday and Thursday? I should go now just for you. Answers Gemara, you're right. It's not the reason of the takana. You know why? It's a special reward because the people in small villages used to be the one that gave the larger villages their food. Therefore, we built in a special leniency and we allowed them, when possible, to go and read early. So it was a special leniency that they received because of the mitzvah that they did. Not necessarily was it an invention specifically for the larger town. No, it was a leniency built in because of that which they did. We allowed them to read early, but again, only if they would go into the larger villages on earlier dates. If not, then they would not. Ask the Gemara, the beginning of the Mishnah, we were going by the dates of the month, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Then the end of the Mishnah, we started going Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Answers the Gemara. Says something you have to take the Gemara's word for it, and then you can work it out on paper. Because it would have gotten confusing. If the Mishnah would have continued the exact same cases and did it by date of the month, you know what would have happened? It would have come out that it was backwards. It would have come out that it would have been Thursday, Wednesday, Tuesday, Monday. It would have been backwards, and therefore, since it would have been backwards, therefore, it would have been quite confusing. Therefore, we switched the order and we went into the dates of the week in order to make it easier to understand. Chal Liyos B'Erev Shabbos, a person falls on Erev Shabbos, about 20 lines down. First one on line is Liyos B'Erev Shabbos. Masnisan Mani, who is the the Tana of the Mishnah? I Rabbi, I Rav Yosi. It can either be Rabbi or it could be Rav Yosi. And again, we're talking about particularly the case of the Mishnah, that when Purim, the 14th, falls on a Friday, what happens? So then the villages go back earlier to Thursday, and the large cities read it on that day, and the walled cities as well read it on that day. And we pointed out in the Mishnah, there's a unique case that the walled cities do not read it on the 15th, because it's Shabbos, rather they read it on that day, on Friday the 14th. So the Gemara is pointing out this is either Rabbi or Rav Yosi. My Rabbi, who's Rabbi? The Tanim learned to the Brayza Chal Liyos B'Erev Shabbos. Kfarim Bayaris Kedoz Makdim Liyom HaKnis. They go early to Thursday. U'Makavin Chayir Karim B'Yom. That's the Tanakama. That's not like our Mishnah. Rabbi Omer Ani. This is like our Mishnah. Lo Yadchu Ayarais Mimkaima. We don't push off in the Ayarais. The cities also read on Friday. The only ones that go early are the small villages. Elo Elu Ve'elu Karim B'Yom. So now, the Tana, Rebbe, clearly is like our Mishnah, that the small villages go one day early to Thursday, and the larger cities and the walled cities both read on Friday. But now says the Gemara, what is this machlekes between the Tanakama and Rebbe in this Braisa? And let's pay attention, because the Gemara is going to repeat itself again when we go into Rav Yosi. My time with the Tanakama, what does the Tanakama argue? The Chsev, the Torah says, Chol Shana V'Shana, each and every year. So the Tanakama holds, my Kol Shana V'Shana Yaris Kadam is the Mukafin. And this was the unique anomaly of this case, like we pointed out, that generally the Ayaris are earlier and the walled cities are the next day. So says the Tanakama, this case should be the same. Avkana Yaros Kedem is the Mukafin. So much so that Tanakama says, make the Yaros read early so that they're a day before the walled cities like every other year. We don't want this case to be strange. Ask the Gemara 1 second. Why don't we say each and every year? Usually the Ayaros never move. They read on their day on the 14th, so you shouldn't move it this year either. Explains the Tanakama. It's impossible. So the Tanakama is favoring that the Ayaros, the city, should not be on the same day as the walled cities, and because of that, they'll have the Ayaros doing something weird, because they want them always to be a day before the walled cities. Rebbe my time. So where does Rebbe come? And by extension, now we're going to learn the Tana of our Mishnah. What does he hold? B'chol shana v'shana, the exact same drasha. Ma'kol shana v'shana, ein hayaris nidcham kaim. Generally, the yaris never move. The large cities read on the 14th. Afkan li'ircha yaris mimkaim, they read on the 14th. They read on Friday. Ve'ema b'chol shana v'shana, ma'kol shana v'shana yaris kedem z'mukafin. Ask the Gemara 1 second. But maybe we should say like the Tanakama, that the yaris, the cities are always before the walled cities. Afkan nami yaris kedem z'mukafin. Explains the Gemara, shiny hacha. This case is different. The law afshir. So basically, Rebbe and the Tanakama, we're about to see Rav Yossi really says the same, agrees that there's a point of impossibility here. There's a case of loy afshir. Because you can't read the next day on a Shabbos. So when the 14th falls on a Friday, we have a problem. The walled cities can't go tomorrow to Shabbos. So something has to give. The Tanakama says, you know what gives? The walled cities stay that day. The unwalled cities do something weird. Even though they normally always read on that day, they go a day earlier. That's what the Tanakama says, bunt them up a day. Says Rebbe, and by extension says our Mishnah, no, that's not what we favor. What we favor is that the walled cities, this big city should stay the same day like they do every single year, which is when? The 14th. It's going to come out that they're going to end up reading the same time as the walled cities. Sure, it's impossible. It's nothing that we could do. Now, my Rav Yossi on the medium-sized line, who's this Rav Yossi? The Tanaim learned in the Brisa. Again, Tanakama says the same thing, that when it falls on a Friday, the cities, the villages go a day earlier. Vayaris Gedoles, the large cities, Karim Babiyayim, read on Friday. Rav Yossi Aimer, who was like our Mishnah, Ein Mukafin Kairin, Kaidun Layaris. No, we never want the Mukafim to be earlier than the Ayaris. Actually, I read that incorrectly. Go back. The Tanakama here is slightly different. Here the Tanakama is saying that the Mukafin, the walled cities, are going earlier. That's the difference in this price and the previous Brisa. And this Brisa, we so much don't want the walled cities to be reading on the same day as the large cities that we make the walled cities earlier. And the previous Brisa, we made the large cities earlier. And this Brisa, the Tanakama holds, we make the walled cities earlier. Rav says, no, that's not possible. Ain't Mukafin Kodim Ayaris. Walled cities never read earlier. They read on Friday. So now says the Gemara, the exact same Shakalatarya. My time of the Tanakama, that the cities are on the 14th. It's never on the same time. The cities remain on the 14th. And it's not the same time. So says the Tanakama, what am I going to do? Okay, must make the walled cities do the day earlier on the 13th. Ask the Gemara, maybe you should say that just like every year, that the walled cities are not earlier. Afghan and Mukavin going like Yaris. Shaniacha delay after. Again, the Tanakama says, "What should I do? It's impossible." Says the Gemara, "My time there, I see the exact same drasha. B'chalshana v'shana, the first very wide line. Markol shana v'shana and Mukavin going like Yaris. Just like each and every year." The Mukafin, the walled cities, are not reading before the cities. Afghan and Mukafin going to the Yaris, they can't read it earlier. Ask the Gemara 1 second. It's not the same time. Afghan answers the Gemara. So we have two opinions, Rebbe and Rav Yossi, both like the Mishnah, and two Tanakamas not like the Mishnah. Ask the Gemara of Saba Rebbe, does Rebbe really hold that the Yaris are not pushed off? We're going back into the first Brisa. In the first Brisa, Rebbe said the large cities and the walled cities remain on Friday, and just the small villages are read earlier on Thursday, just like we learned to the Mishnah. Ask the Gemara, does Rebbe really hold this in that the large cities do not get bumped up? Vatani, we learned in a Brisa, Chalias b'Shabbos, Kfarim Makim Liyam HaKnisa, Vayaris Gedailes Karim Be'erev Shabbos, Umakavas Chaim Elamachar. Rebbe Omer, no, Rebbe disagrees. Omer Hani Hayel v'Nitzcha Yaris Mimkaimam Yitchul Liyam HaKnisa. So Rebbe seemingly is of the opinion that a Yaris get bumped earlier. So why in our Brisa did Rebbe say that a Yaris, the large cities, read on Friday? Answers the Gemara, a very simple tarot that everyone's anticipating. Achi Ashta, Hasam, Zman on Shabbos. And the Brisa you just quoted, really, they're supposed to lean on Shabbos. Hayel v'Nitchu Yitchu. Once you push them off, so you bump it all the way back. Zman Erev Shabbos. Here the Zman is Erev Shabbos. Therefore, if we don't have to push it off at all, we're not going to push it off, and we'll leave everyone on the same day. And we'll conclude with one last brisa. Who does this statement go like? Purim shachaliyos b'Shabbos hakol nirchen liyom haknisa. Everyone pushes off to Thursday. Everyone. What do you mean? That can't be. Tomorrow, the mukafin, the walled seed is, of course, read on Sunday. So what do you mean everyone's pushed off to Thursday? No, you're right, says Gemara. Who is that? Kaman Rebbe. That is going like Rebbe. And actually, we'll see one last price just because we saw this statement in the beginning of today's daf. So let's just do a full circle. Tekule Alma Mia explains the Gemara. Megillah b'Shabbos like Karina, and everyone holds. We don't name the Megillah on Shabbos. My taima. Amarabba, here it is. Hakol chayavim mikriyas Megillah. Tkiyah shayfer. Ve'eina kol b'kiyim b'mikra Megillah. Not everyone is baki in mikra Megillah. You can understand why they might have taken out that word shayfer. Gezerah shem yitzlenu biyadav yedachel tzabaki loma v'yavrenu arba amas shesarabim. We're afraid someone's going to carry in of shesarabim. V'aynu taima de shayfer. V'aynu taima de lulav. And the very famous gezerah of Rava, that lulav, shayfer, Megillah, we don't do on Shabbos. Why? Because someone might not know what to do, and someone might come to carry it, and because of that, how strict carrying a Shabbos is. No one in Klal Yisrael leans Megillah, no one in Klal Yisrael takes the lulav, no one in Klal Yisrael blows shayver, so that no one could, God forbid, be Machal Shabbos. We'll pick up from Rabbi Yosef in Mirz Hashem, which is another reason we don't lean the Megillah on Shabbos in the next year.